Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we'll be discussing executes versus pops, their pros and cons, and when would you want to use either an execute or a pop. First and foremost, let's list pros and cons on executes and pops and see where would you rather use an execute or a pop. I've made a small little sheet. I will link it down below in the description as well so you guys can view it at all times and share it to your friends as well. And I will go over the list of the pros and the cons that I have here and explain a bit further on when you want to use an execute and when you would want to use a pop. So, generally speaking, an execute is when you're throwing most of your util, including mollies, including smokes, including flashes, an entry a site with a lot of numbers towards that site. Pops or bursts, if you want to call it like that, are more used to basically surprise the enemy and him, the enemy, not being able to react with utility or rotations. To summarize, but let's go through the list of the pros and cons. So the pros of an execute. Let's start with that. The first pro that I have here is pushing enemies off of positions and catching them in transition. What I mean by that is you would want to layer your utility. So you would want to throw your smokes first, then you would want to throw your mollies, and then your flashes. Because if you throw everything combined, the enemy would have enough time to reposition. If you throw the mollies after the smokes and then flash, you would catch the enemies transitioning between one position to the other, and it can result you of an easy kill because they will most likely be blind. Another pro that I have is good against ecos. If you know a team is saving and you have an indication that they're doing a default round, uh, let's take any map for an example, overpass 3B and 2A, or vice versa on Inferno, you can have 2B and 3A. It's really good to execute against ecos because you're basically mulling all of the positions that they can hide at and take good timings, and you're eliminating that close range factor generally. The next con that I have, the pro that I have, is working good. It works good after baiting utility. So say for example you did an eco and your goal was to bait a lot of utility. Say for example you're a banana player and you baited 2 smokes out of the CTs and a molly. That remains, like, the CT basically remains with a molly and a couple of flashes nades probably. So doing an execute on a low set of utility is really good because they can't really counter you. Have set timings for utilities. This is another pro that I have, is that you guys can time your utilities and talk about when who is throwing what utility and make sure that everyone is on the same page basically at this point, and it's pretty straightforward on what is going to happen. The next pro that I have is pathing discussed. What I mean by that is you will be able to discuss further how you want to path into the site on an execute. Where is the best pathing for you to catch people off guard and have an advantageous duel against them. The next pro that I have is numbers towards a site hit. When you do an execute, generally you have most of your team 4 to 5 people doing the execute and going in, and if it's against 3 or 2 players, you have a high chance of winning it. The last one that I have is good on large bomb sites. What I mean by that is bomb sites such as, let's take A on Inferno for example, let's take A on Ancient for example, A on Mirage. Most of the A bomb sites, but also some of the B bomb sites. But generally, those bomb sites, if you execute, you eliminate a lot of angles that the enemies can be. Let's go to the cons of the executes. There are not as many cons as pros, but I will also discuss on when you would want to use both. Either, I'm sorry. So, the cons that I have here is takes time to execute and can cause rotations. What I mean by that is you will probably have some sort of a sound cue, or you'll go dark for a bit, like nobody will know where you are in the map, and rotations might come around, and you'll probably hit a site. You may hit a site with 3 people or 4 people stacking it. Shaky against people that save utility. If people save utility, That means that they have enough utility to basically block you from entering the site. A smoke, a molly, a flash, and basically you'll get slaughtered, right? If you push aside after you throw your util and you wasted all of your util and they're counter utiling you, you basically have nothing left to entry with or to get a site with. And it's way easier for them to counter flash and molly you and kind of just block you from the site. No surprise element most of the time. Most of the time when you do an execute, there's no surprise factor. Most of the time they would know at least a couple of seconds prior and be ready for that. That's why baiting utility is very important. And the rotational player won't have a lot of impact because it will still be in transition in a way, but not close enough to save his teammates basically. Now let's go to the pops or bursts or however you want to call that. The pros that I have for that is catching people off guard or surprising. So it's basically you're surprising the enemy. They don't really know what's going on and you're popping fast on them on the side. That can cause a lot of miscoms from them and generally more success towards you. Good against people who are saving utility. If people are saving utility, they will have that counter utility we spoke about. And if you're doing a pop, which means get up fast in their faces basically, that means that they won't have any time to throw that counter utility and gives you again an advantage to win the round. Less reaction or rotation time. What I mean by that is because you're doing a pop and it's basically like a click, it's happening really fast. People won't really be able to react or rotate in time and react in utility, react in repositioning and all of that, and you'll just be up in their faces as fast as you can. Capitalizing on entry success. If we take Inferno Banana, which is probably the most fought area in Counter-Strike per se, a lot of the times as a T, you will be able to get an entry, maybe a double entry if they're a triple V, and a pop allows you to capitalize on the success of the entry and move forward and surprise the last enemy basically with flashes and all of that. The next one I have is get up in their faces. It's basically you giving them no time to react. We already spoke about that. You're getting really fast and really close with flashes, and it works well in small bomb sites, obviously because you get up fast in their faces. The cons that I have is miscalculating their numbers or utility, and you can run into a stack. Basically, self-explanatory. Bad against ecos. If you're playing an eco, they will probably hide in positions, and you don't want to get up in their faces because they have pistols most likely. So you would rather want to go for an execute. Could be rushed sometimes if you capitalize on an entry and it's still sloppy in a way where everybody's not ready in positions for the pop. It can be very rushed and sloppy, and sometimes can also cause you numbers. Less numbers towards the side hit. As we said, if we capitalize on a hit or fake on another place, you'll have less numbers to entry the site. Less utility used to push people off positions. Generally, when you do a pop, you would want to use your flashes first and your smokes right after. You want the flashes to pop and blind the enemies and basically get up in their faces as we spoke about, so you won't have that molly to push people off of rotations. Now let's get into some examples. On this example, we're going to see NIP pop on Sinners. So after Hampus and his teammates pushed Sinners off of Banana to the sides, they still know that Sinners have probably a smoke or a molly, and that's why they decided to pop him. We're going to see Brolin and Rez entry towards the site and trade each other, get up in Sinner's faces really fast while the flashes are still popping, catching them off guard, and getting a trade. I'll let you guys watch. A small note, Asatag is throwing flashes before a smoke, and basically they're smoking CT on the fly, and they're running before any smokes land. On this example, we are going to see Apex execute on Eternal Fire. Apex are aware that Eternal Fire are in some sort of a force buy, and that's why they have decided to be execute after they took banana control. We're going to see them set them up for a full execute, throw all the utility before the entry decide, and basically push everyone off of positions using mollies, flashes, and smokes, and only entry after. In conclusion, executes and pops are both effective in their own ways. You should decide if you want to execute or pop depending on what the other team is allowing you to do. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.